Today, Volvo pulled the wraps off of perhaps their most important model in quite some time. This is the all-new Volvo EX30. It's going to be the smallest SUV that Volvo has ever produced, and it's a dedicated battery electric vehicle. There's not going to be a plug-in hybrid or a gasoline version of the EX30. And definitely in keeping with Volvo's mission to not only be a fully electric car company by 2030, but to emphasize sustainability, they're saying this is going to be the most sustainable and lowest emission production vehicle in the lineup. But before we get to that, let's talk about the details. How big is the EX30? A lot of folks have been guessing about this. Logically, as its name would indicate, this slots below the XC40 and the C40 in the lineup. At about 166 inches long, this is a little bit longer than a four-door Mini Cooper, but not quite as long as the Mini Countryman. With a 61-inch high roofline, the roofline's about 4 inches lower than the XC40 as well, but remember this is a dedicated battery electric vehicle, so it does have a lot of space efficiency as far as the interior goes, and the interior is certainly pretty upright and pretty SUV-like in that respect. The base version is going to have 6.5 inches of ground clearance, but there will be a cross-country version. And I have to admit I'm curious about the cross-country moniker, because EX30 sounds an awful lot like a crossover already. Calling something a crossover cross-country just seems a little redundant, but we'll get to that in a bit. When the 2025 EX30 goes on sale, there are going to be two different drivetrain options, a single rear electric motor producing 268 horsepower, 253 pound-feet of torque, or you can get a dual motor version which adds a 154 horsepower electric motor to the front. So the front motor will be smaller than the rear motor, and you'll get a whopping 422 horsepower and 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds. Although the base model is going to be no slouch when it comes to performance. It's going to go 0 to 60 in 5.1 seconds, which is very respectable considering the size of this crossover. There's going to be just one battery pack offered, 69 kilowatt hours gross. The usable capacity is going to be 64 kilowatt hours according to Volvo. And this is really focused on efficiency, which is another interesting twist. You'll get 275 miles of range in the base version, 265 miles if you choose all-wheel drive. So it's really not a big loss to choose the 3.4 second 0 to 60 model. And this is because the EX30 appears to be pretty light for a modern electric vehicle. The dual motor model is going to be 4,140 pounds. The single motor model is going to be just under 3,900 pounds. That's pretty heavy for something the size of a big Mini, but as far as modern electric cars go, especially outside of the Tesla envelope, this is actually a fairly light curb weight. Ground clearance is pretty reasonable too, 6.5 inches in the base model, so they're not getting to the really good range figures by simply slamming this to the ground like we see in so many EVs. They have given us a few details on the upcoming cross-country variant, which again is kind of an interesting twist. We have some pictures of it. It gets extra body cladding, 2 different unique wheel and tire choices, and extra ground clearance, but we don't know exactly how much ground clearance. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if it ended up somewhere around 8 inches, because that seems to be where a lot of Volvo's crossovers end up as far as their ground clearance figures go. In case you're wondering, the battery pack is an NMC pack, and it's going to support charging up to 153 kilowatts. According to Volvo, that will take this from 10% to 80% in 26.5 minutes. So it looks like that charge peak is not going to be terribly high, but it's going to be very consistent as far as the charge rate goes. It does appear that this is going to be a 400-volt nominal pack here, so charging compatibility should be pretty decent all the way across. It's obvious from these photos that Volvo is going in a slightly different direction when it comes to interior styling and interior materials. We have a higher percentage of recycled and recyclable content in here, and I'm not entirely clear what these surfaces will feel like, but I would suspect a few harder touch points than you'll find in some other Volvos in North America. And that's pretty logical, because when we take a look at this statement that they've released, the price tag of the EX30 is going to be surprisingly low. They're saying that the base version will start under $35,000, $34,950, plus of course destination, and you'll be able to subscribe to one using Volvo's subscription plan. So the price tag of the EX30 is going to be pretty comparable to a decent number of gasoline competitors. This is going to be approximately the same price as something like a base BMW X2 or some of those mid-level Mini Countryman SUVs, etc. And I think one of the ways that Volvo is getting there is by this very minimalist interior. You'll notice that we don't have a separate driver's instrument cluster. We just have that big central screen. And they've certainly gone very minimalist with the door panels and the interior styling. We have some very basic vents. Everything is very, very Scandinavian minimalist, but I think they've done a good job of making it attractive while also being minimalist in that way. The exterior, it's definitely very, very Volvo. The short overhangs are very unique to this electric platform, but it definitely has the boxy presence of the XC40 combined with some of the styling cues that we also see in the EX90. Just remember the size of this, and that's perhaps the most important thing when it comes to the styling here that surprised me, is it's not always easy to scale a particular design as large as an EX90 or down here as small as an EX30 and have that design still look pretty cohesive. I think Volvo did an excellent job of that. Let me know what you think of the design of the EX90 down there in the comments section, and are you intrigued to see if Volvo can actually maintain this pretty low starting price? If Volvo really can keep the price tag under control, the base version is going to end up being less expensive than the Lexus UX Hybrid. And remember that the Lexus UX 250h is not terribly speedy, so we're talking better performance for less money in an interior that is probably going to be larger and more accommodating than what we see in the Lexus UX, and actually several $1,000s less expensive than the least expensive gasoline version of the Volvo XC40. Again, Volvo is committed to an all-electric future in just 7 short years, and by 2040 they're claiming that they're going to be carbon neutral in the production of those electric vehicles. Let me know what you think about all that down there in the comment section below, and are you intrigued by this new Volvo EX30? I'm intrigued enough that we might place a pre-order on one if we actually have that ability when this video goes live. I'll be hunting along with all of you, and I'm really going to be eager to see what the EX30 looks like in person when it goes on sale a little bit later. I'll see all of you later.